Most people are walking around absolutely puzzled about why their lives aren't working. They've got the same 24 hours as everyone else. They're working hard, some of them working 2 jobs, and yet at the end of the month, they're still broke. At the end of the year, they're no further ahead than they were 12 months ago. And here's the fascinating part. They think it's the economy. They think it's their boss. They think it's the government, or taxes, or their spouse, or the neighborhood they grew up in. They've got a list of reasons as long as your arm about why things aren't working out. I was 25 years old, broke, with nothing to show for 6 years of hard work. I had a family to feed, promises I'd made that I couldn't keep, and creditors calling my house. One day a friend of mine named Earl Schoaf asked me a question that changed everything. He said, "Jim, if you want things to change, you've got to change. If you want things to get better, you've got to get better." And here's the key. Don't wish it was easier. Wish you were better. That hit me like a freight train. Because up until that moment, I'd been wishing everything else would change. I wished my job paid more. I wished the economy was better. I wished I'd been born into a different family. But Earl showed me something profound that day. The problem wasn't out there. The problem was in here. The problem was my philosophy. See, your philosophy is the way you think. It's your attitude about life, about work, about yourself, about other people. And here's what most people don't understand. Your philosophy determines the direction of your life, not your circumstances, not your background, not your education. Your philosophy. It's the set of beliefs and ideas that guide your daily decisions. And those daily decisions compound over time to create your life. Think about it this way. If you've got the philosophy that someone else is responsible for your life, that someone else owes you something, that the world should be fair, well, that philosophy is going to lead you down a very specific path. And it's not a path that leads to success, fulfillment, or financial independence. That philosophy leads to frustration, resentment, and a lifetime of pointing fingers. But if you develop a philosophy that says, I'm responsible for my life, I'm the one who got me here, and I'm the one who can get me out. If I don't like where I am, I've got the power to change it. That philosophy changes everything. That's the fundamental difference between rich thinking and poor thinking. Poor thinking says, I can't afford it. Rich thinking says, how can I afford it? Poor thinking says, that's not possible for someone like me. Rich thinking says, if someone else has done it, there's a way and I'll find it. I'll tell you something else about philosophy. Most people spend more time working on their jobs than they work on themselves. They'll work 8, 10, 12 hours a day for 30 years making someone else rich, but they won't spend 30 minutes a day working on their own personal development. They won't read the books. They won't attend the seminars. They won't invest in growing themselves. And then they wonder why, after 30 years, they're no better off than when they started. The greatest value in life is not what you get. The greatest value in life is what you become. Because who you become determines what you can have, what you can attract, what kind of life you can build. You want more money? Become more valuable. You want better relationships? Become a better person. You want success? Develop the philosophy and the character of a successful person. I knew a man once who spent 18 years blaming the economy for his financial problems. 18 years. He'd sit around with his friends talking about how the government was destroying the country, how the rich were getting richer, how there were no opportunities anymore. And all that time, 18 years, the economy went up and down like it always does. Some industries collapsed, others boomed. Some people got rich, others went broke. But this man, he stayed exactly where he was, convinced that forces outside his control were keeping him down. What he never figured out was that the economy wasn't his problem. His philosophy was his problem. He had the philosophy of a victim. And as long as you've got the philosophy of a victim, you'll always be one. It doesn't matter what the economy does. It doesn't matter who's in the White House. It doesn't matter what advantages or disadvantages you had growing up. What matters is whether you're willing to take full responsibility for where you are and where you're going. Personal responsibility, that's the bridge between philosophy and results. See, you can change your philosophy today, right now. You can decide, from this moment forward, I'm responsible. No more excuses. No more blaming. I'm the captain of my own ship, and if I don't like where it's heading, I'm the one who's got to turn the wheel. That decision, that shift in philosophy, is the beginning of everything good in your life. But here's what's beautiful about small changes in philosophy. They don't cost you anything except old habits and old thinking. I started changing my philosophy at 25, and within 6 years, I was a millionaire. Not because I got lucky, not because the economy suddenly got better, but because I got better. I changed what I believed about myself, about work, about money, about life. And when I changed my philosophy, my actions changed. And when my actions changed, my results changed. Think about a penny doubled every day for a month. On day 1, you've got a penny. On day 5, you've got 16 cents. Doesn't look like much. On day 10, you've got $5. Still not impressive. But by day 30, you've got over $5 million. That's the compound effect. That's what happens when small changes in philosophy lead to small changes in behavior, and those small changes compound over time. Most people don't make these changes because they can't see the $5 million on day 1. They see the penny and think it's not worth the effort. They want the harvest without planting the seeds. They want the results without doing the work on themselves first. But life doesn't work that way. You've got to plant in the spring if you want to harvest in the fall. And the first thing you've got to plant is a better philosophy. So start there. Start with examining what you believe. What's your philosophy about work, about money, about success, about personal responsibility? Are your beliefs serving you, or are they holding you back? Because I promise you this, if you don't like the results you're getting, if you're not where you want to be in life, there's a flaw in your philosophy. Find it. Fix it. And everything else will begin to fall into place. But philosophy alone won't feed your family. Philosophy won't pay your mortgage or put your kids through college. Philosophy is the foundation, but you've got to build on that foundation. And what you build next determines whether your life becomes a mansion or stays a shack. So once you've got your philosophy straight, once you've taken full responsibility for your life, the next question becomes, what are you going to do with that responsibility? And that's where skills come in. Skills are what you trade in the marketplace. Skills are what you exchange for money. And here's the harsh reality that nobody wants to hear. The marketplace doesn't care about your needs. It doesn't care that you've got bills to pay or kids to feed or dreams you want to accomplish. The marketplace only cares about one thing, value. I learned this lesson the hard way when I was working at the department store. I thought I deserved a raise because I'd been there for a while, because I was showing up every day, because I needed more money. So I went to my boss and said, I need a raise. And he looked at me and said, Jim, you don't get paid for the hour. You get paid for the value you bring to the hour. That stopped me cold. I was thinking about what I needed. He was thinking about what I was worth to the company. That's the fundamental truth about income. You don't get paid for time. You get paid for value. A brain surgeon makes more in an hour than a ditch digger makes in a week. Why? Because the brain surgeon spent years developing a valuable skill. The marketplace rewards that value. Now, both people might work just as hard. Both might show up on time and give full effort, but one has made themselves more valuable than the other. So if you want to earn more, you've got to become more valuable. And the way you become more valuable is by developing skills. Learn to communicate better. Learn to sell. Learn to manage people. Learn to think strategically. Learn technology. Learn a trade. Learn anything that makes you more valuable in the marketplace. Because your income will rarely exceed your personal development. If you want to earn more, you've got to learn more. If you want to have more, you've got to become more. When I started working on myself, when I started reading books and listening to mentors like Mr. Schoaf, I wasn't just learning information, I was developing skills. I was learning how to think differently, how to communicate effectively, how to influence people, how to set goals and achieve them. And as my skills increased, my income increased. Not slowly, dramatically. Within a few years, I went from barely getting by to earning more in a month than I used to make in a year. Same economy, same city, same opportunities available to everyone, but different skills. Here's something else about skills. Formal education will make you a living, but self-education will make you a fortune. Now, I'm not against formal education. Go to school, get your degree, learn everything they'll teach you. But don't stop there, because the real education, the education that changes your economic situation, happens when you take responsibility for your own learning. When you read the books, nobody's making you read. when you attend the seminars on your own time and your own dime, when you study the successful people in your field and figure out what they know that you don't know. Most people finish school and think they're done learning. They've got their diploma, and now they're ready to coast for the next 40 years. But the person who's committed to self-education, they're just getting started. They understand that every book they read, every skill they develop, every mentor they learn from is an investment in their future earning power. And those investments compound over time, just like the penny doubled every day. But even with the right philosophy and valuable skills, there's something else that determines whether you're going to make it or not, and that's your attitude. Attitude is the multiplier effect on everything you do. You can have incredible skills, but if you've got a poor attitude, those skills won't take you very far. On the other hand, you can have average skills with an outstanding attitude, and you'll outperform the talented person with the lousy attitude every single time. I used to watch two salespeople in the same company selling the exact same product to the same kinds of customers. One of them would complain all day long. Complain about the product, complain about the customers, complain about the company, complain about the territory. And at the end of the year, he'd have mediocre results. The other salesperson was enthusiastic. He believed in the product, believed in the company, believed in himself. He'd walk into the same difficult situations with energy and optimism. And his results? Triple what the first guy was doing. Same product, same company, same market, different attitude. Your attitude determines your altitude in every single area of life. It determines how high you can rise in your career. It determines the quality of your relationships. It determines your health, your happiness, your success. Because attitude affects everything. It affects how you show up. It affects how people respond to you. It affects whether you see opportunities or obstacles, whether you persist or quit, whether you attract success or repel it. And here's the thing about attitude. It's a choice. Every single day, you get to choose your attitude. Life's going to throw things at you. The economy is going to fluctuate. People are going to disappoint you. Things aren't always going to go according to plan. But you get to choose how you respond. You get to choose whether you're going to be positive or negative, enthusiastic or apathetic, grateful or bitter. Now, some people say, well, Jim, you don't understand my situation. If you knew what I was dealing with, you'd understand why I can't be positive. But that's exactly backwards. The worse your situation, the more important your attitude becomes. When everything's going great, anybody can have a good attitude. But when things are tough, that's when your attitude determines whether you're going to break through or break down. The attitude you need to cultivate is one of gratitude and enthusiasm. Be grateful for what you have while you're pursuing what you want. Be enthusiastic about the opportunity to grow, to learn, to become more than you are right now. Because enthusiasm is contagious. When you're genuinely enthusiastic about what you're doing, other people catch it. They want to work with you, buy from you, help you succeed. But let's talk about something that ties all of this together, something that everybody's got equally, whether they're rich or poor, educated or uneducated, young or old, and that's time. We all get 24 hours in a day. The billionaire and the broke person have the same amount of time. The difference is what they do with it. Time is the great equalizer, and it's the great opportunity. Because if you'll use the next 6 months wisely, you can completely change your life. 6 months of reading the right books, developing the right skills, changing your attitude, taking the right actions, 6 months can change everything. But most people waste their time. They spend it instead of investing it. What's the difference? When you spend time, it's gone. You've got nothing to show for it. When you invest time, you get a return. Watching television for 4 hours is spending time. Reading books that make you better for 4 hours is investing time. Gossiping with negative people is spending time. Learning from successful mentors is investing time. Complaining about your problems is spending time. Working on solutions is investing time. Most people are spending their days, their weeks, their years, and then they wonder why they're not getting ahead. They're treating time like it's an endless resource, like there's always going to be more of it. But there isn't. Every day that passes is a day you'll never get back. Every hour you waste is an hour you could have invested in your future. And the tragedy is that most people don't figure this out until it's too late. I meet people all the time who tell me, I'm going to start working on myself next year. I'm going to start that business when things settle down. I'm going to read those books when I have more time. But next year never comes. Things never settle down, and you'll never have more time than you have right now. 24 hours. That's what you've got. The question is, what are you going to do with it? If you'll take just 1 hour a day, 1 hour, and invest it in your personal development, in 5 years, you'll be a completely different person. 1 hour a day reading. 1 hour a day learning new skills. 1 hour a day working on your attitude, your philosophy, your goals. That's 365 hours a year. In 5 years, that's over 1,800 hours of invested time. That's like getting a second education. That's like adding years to your productive life. But most people won't do it. They'll spend that hour watching television or scrolling through their phones or doing things that don't move them forward. And 5 years from now, they'll be in the same place wondering why their lives haven't changed. The answer is simple. They didn't change. They didn't invest the time in becoming better. Time management isn't really about managing time. It's about managing yourself. It's about deciding what's important and what's not. It's about having the discipline to invest your hours in things that matter instead of wasting them on things that don't. Because at the end of your life, nobody's going to ask you how many hours of television you watched. They're going to look at what you built, what you created, what you became. So here's what I'm telling you. Take your skills seriously. Make yourself more valuable every single year. Keep learning, keep growing, keep developing. Protect your attitude like it's your most valuable possession, because it is. And invest your time like the precious resource it is. Because these three things, skills, attitude, and time, they're the building blocks you use to construct the life you want. But having the blocks isn't enough. You've got to actually build something with them. Having the right philosophy, developing valuable skills, maintaining a great attitude, and managing your time wisely, all of that is absolutely essential. But here's where most people completely miss it. They confuse motion with progress. They confuse being busy with being productive. They confuse activity with results. And that confusion costs them everything. Activity is what you do. Results are what you get from what you do. And they're not the same thing. I've seen people who are busy all day long, running around, always in motion, always exhausted, and at the end of the year, they've got nothing to show for it. Then I've seen other people who seem to work less, who aren't frantically busy, but their results are 10 times better. What's the difference? The difference is that one person is focused on activity and the other person is focused on results. There's a story about a farmer that illustrates this perfectly. This farmer would get up every morning at sunrise and work until sunset. He was always busy, always doing something. Plowing, planting, fixing fences, moving equipment. If you drove by his farm, you'd see him out there working hard every single day. But here's the problem. At harvest time, his yields were terrible. Year after year, his crops were mediocre at best. He couldn't figure it out. He was working just as hard as his neighbors, maybe harder, but his results were completely different. The problem wasn't his work ethic. The problem was his activity. He was doing lots of things, but he wasn't doing the right things at the right time. He was plowing when he should have been planting. He was fixing equipment when he should have been fertilizing. He was busy, but his activity wasn't aligned with the results he needed. All that motion, all that effort, but it wasn't producing the harvest he wanted. That's exactly what happens to most people. They're busy, but they're not productive. They're active, but they're not effective. They work hard, but they work hard on the wrong things. And here's what you've got to understand. The marketplace doesn't reward activity. It rewards results. Your boss doesn't pay you for being busy. He pays you for producing value. Your customers don't care how many hours you worked. They care about whether you solve their problem. So the question becomes, what activities actually produce results? And this is where the 80-20 rule comes in. 80% of your results come from 20% of your activities. Think about that. If you looked at everything you did last week, 80% of your actual results came from just 20% of what you did. The rest of it? Motion, activity, busy work, things that felt productive but didn't actually move you forward. The successful person figures out what that 20% is and does more of it. They identify the activities that actually produce results and they focus their time and energy there. They don't get distracted by all the other stuff. They don't confuse motion with progress. They ask themselves constantly, is what I'm doing right now producing the results I want? And if the answer is no, they stop doing it. Most people never ask that question. They just keep doing what they've always done, staying busy, wondering why they're not getting ahead. They're like a hamster on a wheel, lots of activity, lots of motion, lots of effort, but they're not actually going anywhere. They're just spinning. Massive action in the right direction, that's what produces results. Not scattered effort, not doing a little bit of everything, but concentrated, focused, massive action on the things that matter most. If you want to double your income, you don't need to double your activity. You need to focus your activity on the things that produce income and do more of those things. If you want better relationships, you don't need to know more people. You need to invest more quality time in the relationships that matter. But here's what ties all of this together, and this is fundamental. You've got to understand the law of sowing and reaping. This is one of the most important laws in life, and most people either don't know it or they try to violate it. The law says this: you reap what you sow. You don't reap what you want. You don't reap what you need. You don't reap what you wish for. You reap what you sow. If you plant corn, you get corn. If you plant weeds, you get weeds. If you plant nothing, you get nothing. It's that simple. But people try to violate this law every single day. They want a harvest they didn't plant. They want results they didn't work for. They want success without the preparation. They want the harvest in the fall, but they didn't plant anything in the spring. I knew a man once who complained constantly that he wasn't successful. He'd see other people doing well and he'd say, "Why them and not me? I deserve success just as much as they do." But when you looked at his life, he hadn't planted anything. He hadn't developed his skills. He hadn't worked on his attitude. He hadn't invested his time wisely. He hadn't taken massive action on the right activities. He wanted the harvest, but he never planted the seeds. And here's another part of the law that people forget. There's a season between planting and harvesting. You can't plant corn in the morning and harvest it in the afternoon. You plant in the spring, you cultivate through the summer, and you harvest in the fall. There's a gap. There's a season of faith where you've done the work, but you haven't seen the results yet. And that's where most people quit. They start doing the right things. They change their philosophy. They develop their skills. They improve their attitude. They take action. But after a week or a month or 3 months, they don't see dramatic results yet, so they quit. They think it's not working. But the problem isn't that it's not working. The problem is they're trying to harvest before the crop has had time to grow. Success requires patience combined with urgency. Urgency in the planting. You've got to get those seeds in the ground now, today, not someday. But patience in the harvesting, you've got to give it time to grow. Most people have it backwards. They're patient about getting started, but impatient about getting results. They wait forever to plant, but they want the harvest immediately. The law of sowing and reaping also says this: you reap more than you sow. Plant one kernel of corn, and you get a stalk with multiple ears, each with hundreds of kernels. Plant one seed of effort, of discipline, of right activity, and it multiplies. That's the good news. The bad news is that this works with negative things too. Plant one seed of neglect, and it multiplies. Plant one seed of bad habits, and it grows into a harvest of problems. That's why what you do today matters so much. Every action is a seed. Every choice is planting something. You're either planting seeds that will grow into the life you want, or you're planting seeds that will grow into problems and regrets. And you can't plant seeds of mediocrity and expect a harvest of excellence. You can't plant seeds of laziness and expect a harvest of success. You can't plant seeds of negativity and expect a harvest of happiness. Results don't lie. Numbers don't have opinions. At the end of the day, at the end of the month, at the end of the year, you've got results. And those results are the direct consequence of the seeds you planted and the activities you engaged in. If you don't like your results, don't blame the economy or your boss or your circumstances. Look at what you planted. Look at your activities. Look at whether you're confusing motion with progress. Because here's the truth. You can lie to yourself about your effort. You can lie to yourself about your intentions. You can lie to yourself about how busy you are. But you can't lie about your results. Your bank account doesn't lie. Your relationships don't lie. Your health doesn't lie. Your results tell you the truth about what you've actually been doing, not what you think you've been doing or what you intended to do. So how do you put all 6 of these fundamentals together? How do you take philosophy, skills, attitude, time, activity, and results and turn them into a life that works? That's where most people get stuck. They understand each piece individually, but they don't know how to make them work together as a complete system. These 6 fundamentals aren't separate pieces that you work on one at a time. They're parts of a whole system, and they work together like gears in a machine. When one gear turns, it affects all the others. And here's the beautiful part. When you get them working together, when you align all 6 of these fundamentals, something almost magical happens. Your life starts working in ways you never imagined possible. It starts with philosophy. That's the first gear. When you change your philosophy, when you accept complete responsibility for your life, that shift affects everything else. It changes what skills you decide to develop because you're no longer waiting for someone else to train you or promote you. It changes your attitude because you're no longer a victim of circumstances. It changes how you use your time because you realize nobody's coming to save you. It changes your activities because you focus on what produces results instead of what's comfortable. And when all of that changes, your results change. I had a young man track this for 90 days once. He wrote down his philosophy at the beginning, what he believed about work, money, success, responsibility. Then he committed to developing one new skill every month. He worked on his attitude daily, started each morning deciding to be enthusiastic and grateful. He tracked how he invested his time, cutting out the activities that didn't produce results, and he measured everything, his income, his relationships, his health, his progress toward his goals. After 90 days, his life was unrecognizable. Not because of one big breakthrough, but because of the compound effect of all 6 fundamentals working together. His income increased by 40%. His relationships improved dramatically. He had more energy, more confidence, more clarity about where he was going. And the most interesting part, he was working fewer hours than before. Not because he was working less hard, but because he was working on the right things. That's the compound effect. Small disciplines practiced every day. Small improvements in each of these 6 areas compounding over time. Most people drastically overestimate what they can accomplish in a year, but they drastically underestimate what they can accomplish in 5 years. They want the transformation to happen overnight. They want to fix everything at once. But that's not how life works. Life responds to consistent, persistent effort applied intelligently over time. The difference between trying and committing, that's what determines whether these fundamentals actually change your life or just become nice ideas you heard once. Trying means you'll do it when it's convenient. Trying means you'll give it a shot and see what happens. Trying means you'll quit when it gets difficult. Committing means you've made a decision that this is how you're going to live from now on. Committing means it's not negotiable. Committing means you'll persist until you get the results you're after. I've seen the transformation happen hundreds of times. A person who was stuck, frustrated, barely getting by, suddenly becomes successful, fulfilled, financially independent, and everyone around them says they got lucky, they were in the right place at the right time. But that's not what happened. What happened was they aligned these 6 fundamentals. They fixed their philosophy, developed valuable skills, maintained a positive attitude, invested their time wisely, took massive action on the right activities and produced results. And those results compounded until their entire life changed. Here's the question that should drive everything you do. What are you going to leave behind? When your time on this earth is done, what will you have built? What will you have become? Who will you have helped? What legacy will remain? Because at the end of the day, life isn't just about what you get. It's about what you give. It's about who you become in the process. It's about whether you use the gifts and opportunities you were given to create something meaningful. The urgency is now, not tomorrow, not next week, not when things settle down, or when you feel ready. You're never going to feel completely ready. There's never going to be a perfect time. The perfect time is now, today, this moment, because every day you wait is a day you can't get back. Every week you delay is a week of compound growth you're missing. Every year you procrastinate is a year further away from the life you could be living. Life responds to deserve, not need. It doesn't matter how badly you need success or want happiness or desire financial freedom. Life gives you what you deserve based on the person you've become and the value you've created. And the person you've become is a direct result of these 6 fundamentals: your philosophy, your skills, your attitude, your use of time, your activities, and your results. So start today. Start right now. Examine your philosophy and fix what's broken. Commit to developing skills that make you more valuable. Choose your attitude every single morning. Invest your time like the precious resource it is. Focus your activities on what produces results, and measure those results honestly. Do this consistently, persistently, intelligently, and your life will change. Not might change, will change. That's not a promise, that's a law.